Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today as I talk about the fastest game on 2 feet, also known as lacrosse. It is one of the fastest growing sports, having more than double the number of participants in a 10-year frame. More specifically, I will be talking about the history of men's lacrosse at the collegiate level. College lacrosse is an up and coming sport that is gaining more revenue and as a result is giving college students more opportunities to provide scholarships. This certainly can help underprivileged athletes if they are good enough to gain scholarship to help with paying for college. Additionally, the sport is very entertaining to watch, as is all the contact that football has to offer, but also the high speed that basketball also offers. I am personally connected to lacrosse because I have played for 6 years and have been a fan of it ever since. I've also worked at numerous college lacrosse games and experienced firsthand a portion of men's college lacrosse history. The history of men's lacrosse is extremely rich and has a ton to offer for people willing to learn, which includes how it's transformed from its beginnings to the present day, the shocking amount of highly skilled players that can be called the best of all time, and how the sport has changed rule-wise from its beginnings. Firstly, lacrosse has been played in college for a long time, 100 years, before being an NCAA sanctioned sport. However, it was a very uncommon sport that not many people knew of. One of the most important pieces of the history of men's lacrosse begins with how it started under the NCAA and how it has grown to be present due to the NCAA. According to the NCAA lacrosse website, the first year that the NCAA sanctioned lacrosse as an official sport was 1971 at the Division I level, the same year they first held a championship for men's lacrosse. The first lacrosse championship was won by Cornell University against the University of Maryland with a score of 12-6. The first 5 championships were won by 4 different schools: Cornell, Virginia, Maryland, and Johns Hopkins. Now, in the present day, the past 3 championships have been won by Virginia twice and Maryland. Up to this point, there have been 11 different teams that have won the D1 national championship, with Syracuse having the most with 11. The second most being Johns Hopkins with 9. 22 of the 51 championship games have been decided by 1 goal, so therefore the sport is extremely competitive and the winner is rarely the same year after year, which makes it extra fun to watch. While team success is easily one of the most talked about subjects of college lacrosse, you simply cannot leave out the individuals that are the best of all time in the lacrosse world. A part of college lacrosse history is the best players of all time, as well as the most historically successful college lacrosse teams of all time. While people love talking about the best teams, I would say the best players are also talked about a lot, as it is cool to hear for people to hear a name and connect it to a record. One of the most newly broken records was Chris Gray of UNC, where, according to the Daily Tar Heel, he broke the all-time points in a career with 401 points in 71 games last May. He now plays professionally as an attackman, performing at quite a high level, despite only being 5'7" tall. Previous record was held by Lyle Thompson of the University of Albany, who had 400 points in 70 games. He also plays professionally, has been named with numerous honors. Another record that is frequently talked about in recent memory is the most faceoffs won in a career. The record holder now is T.D. Erling of the University of Albany, who won 1,245 faceoffs in 69 games. He now also plays professionally and has been quite successful. The person who he broke the record of was none other than Trevor Baptiste, who, according to the Denver Post, was a significant factor for the Denver teams that won a national championship. He won 1,158 faceoffs in 69 games. Trevor Baptiste is a highly talented player professionally and has been named an All-Star numerous times. Another part of the record book people love talking about is the dynasties that have occurred throughout college lacrosse. One of these was Cornell of the mid to early 70s, which featured 2 consecutive perfect seasons. This team won 42 games in a row, which is still the record to this day. In those 2 seasons, they won by an average margin of 10 goals, which is the most of all time. According to the NCAA statistics book, these teams rank in the top 10 of all time in points scored per season and top 20 in points allowed in a season. Notable players from this dynasty include Mike French and Eamon McEnany. Another notable dynasty was Syracuse of the late 80s to early 90s, which won 3 championships in a row, only lost once in those 3 seasons. In one season, which has been vacated due to the NCAA infractions, they were the best in scoring across nearly all fronts in goals, assists, and points per game of all time. These teams were led by notable players such as Gary Gait and Paul Gait, and their famous head coach Roy Simmons Jr. While most of the records are set by modern-day players, it is also important to note how the sport has changed since the 1970s. A ton has changed since the beginning, especially in the rules and the required pieces of equipment. One of the most notable changes from the 70s is that, according to the book We Showed Baltimore, the sticks are very rarely made out of wood anymore, as we now use metal sticks, which are much more durable and more easily mass produced, which allows for more people to play, which is a good thing to grow the sport. Additionally, there are fewer pads worn today than they used to, which is partially due to the more strict rules they put in place for the safety of the players. For example, aggressive hits were previously allowed, whereas now any hit near the head is a serious penalty. This is also part of why they used to wear heavy shoulder pads, while now they wear extremely lightweight shoulder pads that rarely even cover the shoulders and typically are only used to protect the heart. This sport has also become much less dangerous for the player's sake, which certainly has helped the offense part of the sport, which is why scoring has gone up from the beginning of NCAA lacrosse. So while the sport has drastically changed from its beginnings, it still is the same sport that should be equally appreciated throughout the history of the sport and is something very exciting to watch. The history of college lacrosse is extremely rich and has tons of changes from its origination, including the gears, rules, and style of play required. Similarly, its past is still a part of the present, as some of the best schools now were dominant back in the day. Additionally, some of the best players of all time have come from different eras, meaning it's a ubiquitous sport. While men's lacrosse certainly doesn't have a perfect history, neither does any sport. So if you want to entertain yourself with a new and up-and-coming sport that combines soccer, football, and hockey, I suggest you watch it and learn more about college lacrosse, the fastest game on 2 feet. Any questions? Thank you.